Welcome to the Ross Board of Education Thursday. It's Thursday, December 15th, Ross Board of Education work session. Mrs. Logan, if you could, please call the roll.
Mr. Kleinfelter?
Present.
Mr. Schnell?
Here.
Mrs. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Here. Okay, Mrs. Hayes is running a little bit late for work, and Dr. Kunkel is in bed sick for the third straight day. So he's not feeling well. So that's the absence of our superintendent, but Mrs. Hayes will be here. We'll go right into our work session, and I'll turn the floor over to Mrs. Logan and Mr. Castater.
Thank you. Tonight, Steve and I are going to tag team, and we do have a presentation that goes along with the agenda that's stated for our work session. So I'm going to jump right into it. So we're going to review the five-year forecast. At our last board meeting, the board adopted your November forecast that's been filed with the state. Steve is going to review how did we get here? What's our, we're going to talk about our financial position, and Steve's going to talk about what steps led us to where we are now, which is going to include those past reductions and the cuts as well. Then I'm going to jump back in and talk about state oversight and where we are in that process. And then we're going to look at some recommendations and what are we going to do about it. So this is the snapshot that we saw last month. It's our current financial situation based on the five-year forecast that was adopted. And so you're going to see that red coming in for unreserved cash balance in 2025, which means we run out of cash. It's not a spending deficit, which is spending surplus or deficit. You're going to see that we were showing a spending deficit, meaning we were spending more than we're bringing in 2021 than last year based on the plan and the reductions. You were in a spending surplus, and then that returns this year. But the situation we're in right now that is dire is running out of cash in 2025. And this is just a graph to show the same thing that we looked at on the chart before. So in summary, we've talked about it. We are in a financial crisis. The state has actually sent the formal notice to the superintendent, myself, and to the board president that we are in precautionary status, and we are going to have to put a plan together. And again, cash is gone in 25, and we need to review all options. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Thank you. So we've reviewed a lot of these ideas and concepts before in various forms, but this is just tonight would be a general summary and overview of how did we get in this situation. So a couple of the key bullet points here. I think the first two are very important in assessing where we're at. The state of how the state of Ohio looks at our school district, and we've used that idea before that we're considered a wealthy district by the state, and you can see that reflected in our funding in fiscal 2013, $10,460,443 in funding, and then 10 years later, in fiscal 23, just up to 10,592. So a very small marginal increase in a 10-year period of time in state funding. The other things that led to this, obviously we passed the income tax in 2019. Income tax takes several cycles until you reach the full realized value. So as you can see from that bullet point, we didn't achieve the full maximum value of that income tax increase until July of 2021, even though there were some things that we did when the levy passed, like adding our SSO positions and some of the other things that we did for the district and for the community. That spending started immediately after the levy passed. So which contributed to the issue of deficit spending moving forward. Several other primary factors that led to us depleting our cash. You can see $3.1 million increase in payroll and benefits between 18 and 21. A lot of that was due to negotiated raises. You can see the raises that we were able to give our staff over that 3-year period of time. And then it's important to not forget that every year, regardless of what the base salary increase is, our wages go up 2.1% with step movement. So people that move on the scale from one step to another, both our certified and our classified staff, that costs the district 2.1% off the top. Moving forward, even before that base increase of a 3% or a 2% is included into those payroll and benefit increases. The other thing that is significant that we've seen happen over the last several years is just the increase in special education in the district, and we've been able to calculate $814,000 increase in personnel for special education services in that 4-year period of time, fiscal 17 through 21. Other costs that have caused us to deplete cash are healthcare. I think we've mentioned that over the last couple of meetings. In fiscal 22, our healthcare costs went up 9%. This year, starting in a couple weeks here, January 1, they're going up 17.9%. So that's a significant amount of money that the district will be paying in additional healthcare costs for our employees. Also, the consumer price index, we've talked about that a little bit as well. Everything is more expensive now than it was a few years ago. So you can see those numbers jumping from 1.2 in fiscal 21 all the way up to 8.6 in 23. And we're seeing that in our food service costs and our fuel costs and everything, and supplies and classroom supplies and things that we purchase for the district. All of those costs have gone up, as well as obviously our utilities and personnel costs as well.
I think you skipped a page.
I think you skipped the page. Go back.
There you go. Whoop, the transfers. There.
Okay, so transfers, again, the $1.6 million to fund the HVAC project at Elda and the middle school. We did not have money in permanent improvement at the time to be able to fund that project, so that cost had to come from the general fund. And that was a major hit during that 3-year period of time that our cash balance was depleting. There were a few other transfers. Food service, fortunately, over the last couple years has been back in the black and doing a better job of getting to a break-even point or having a small surplus. And then 2 small transfers to athletics, $55,000, and then $50,000 to uniform supply, which is what buys classroom supply. So those were several transfers that happened over that 3-year period of time. Again, just leading to the bigger picture. So part of what we have been able to do over the last couple years from 20 through 22 is we've made several reductions. So some of the hiring and things that happened in that 17, 18, 19 period of time, we right-sized a lot of that in many ways. You can see from 20 to 22 there, we've cut a total of $1.8 million. And those are all staffing items. Some of that was through attrition when people left or retired. Some of that was through reduction in force, where we eliminated some positions and did not bring those back. So those savings carry forward. But even with reducing the $1.831 million and over the last couple years, we're still in a dire financial position.
So just to review what the designations for state oversight are. So first is the precautionary status, which we've been there before, and then we were removed because you had the plan and you implemented the plan for last year. And then it would go into caution, watch, and emergency. So again, because in the 3rd year of our 5-year forecast, which is 2025, we're showing a deficit, we are now in the precautionary status. And each one of these designations just get worse. And so there they are for our review again. This slide we included as well because one of the areas that I think that is kind of misleading is people believe that state oversight means that the state comes in and they take over. That is not the case. They come in and they strongly recommend, but it is still the Board of Education's decision to make based on the recommendations to follow through with those. And the other thing I want to mention here, we talked about each step gets worse. The fiscal emergency, which is the worst situation, the average duration that a district actually stays in fiscal emergency is 4 years. Because once you get there, you have to show no deficit in your 5-year forecast. So, we want to try to avoid getting to that situation. Again, what is our status? We are in precautionary status, and we have been given our notice, and we now have to work on the written plan and to submit it back to the state. And here is that official letter. It's pretty small. I don't know if it, but this is the emailed letter that we actually got this week. So now, what are our next steps? What are we going to do right now to, to try to impact the situation that we are in? So, number one, internally, we are analyzing. We continue to analyze the situation and look for things that we could be doing in a different way to help our financial situation. And externally, we have been connected with the Auditor of State's office, who have started a performance audit. And so there has been a request for information from them to us. I believe we've gotten back just about all the information they've requested, which was pretty detailed. So they are taking a very thorough look of the district, and we have been told that by April, we should expect a report back on that performance audit. We are also we have engaged with an insurance consultant. Steve talked about these insurance rate increases that are quite substantial. So we have also engaged with a consultant to help us review that situation to see if there's anything more that we could be doing on that front as well. And then we are looking at additional cuts and the prospect of an additional levy request. The next opportunity for a request is May, and I did hear that the August opportunity has been, it looks like, as long as the governor signs it, it's been taken away now. So,
unless you're in fiscal emergency.
Yes, yes. So reductions, cuts that we're looking at, and so for next year, the reductions that we are looking at to consider would be 1 reduction for district office administration, 1 for high school science, 1 for elementary physical education, 1 at the middle school, and we also have someone that resigned as a treasurer's assistant, and we are not planning on replacing that person. And then also through attrition, if there are resignations, retirements that come forward that we're not aware of right now, that could be an opportunity as well for reductions. In all, what we're looking for is $600,000 in reductions that would be for next fiscal year. Additionally, those reductions, because those reductions are not the only thing that we're going to need to do, we also would pair that with a levy request. And so in May, we are looking at a 9.5 mil emergency levy request that would be paired with that $600,000 reduction in our expenditures. This levy would produce about $4.4 million in Ross. 1 mil generates about $470,000 for our district. And the monthly cost of this levy would be $27.71 per $100,000 of assessed value. With that 9.5 mil 5-year levy and the $600,000 of reductions, what would our finances look like? And here's a snapshot of that. And you can see that through 28, that fifth year, we would still have an unreserved cash balance of approximately right at 30 days, which is what the goal was with the last levy. So we're just trying to mirror making it last for 5 years with approximately 30 days of cash in that fifth year. So questions?
Mr. Kleinfelder, do you have any questions?
Currently, we're in the Butler County Health Plan, right?
Correct.
17.9%. What other districts are not in Butler County, aren't involved in that? And are they getting a better rate, or, I know we're exploring with Haran anyway, but
So I'm not sure, I know Lakota is out, but are you aware of any of the other schools in Butler
All
County
the
that?
other county districts are in the
I think all the other
Everybody
schools
but
are
Lakota,
in the
right.
consortium, but I can say we are not the only district that is looking at all options. It's just a huge increase, and a consortium, there are reasons to be part of a consortium and to stay as part of a consortium, but we just want to make sure that this is the best option for Ross. So, yeah, we're looking at all options.
Mr. Chanel, do you got anything else, Mr. Kleinfelder?
I might come back to another
Okay.
question.
You're good.
Jenny, I think it'd be good if, just to clarify, the cost of our external analysis, right? It is, it's free.
Yes.
On both counts.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not paying anything for that, just felt like, should make that clear. Also, just that, the additional cuts that we're looking for in the next year, that would be permanent, so, that would be over the life of the levy, the 5 years that we're asking for. So it's not like we would rehire any of those positions if the levy does pass, correct?
That is correct. This recommendation would be for that $600,000 in cuts that would need to remain paired with that levy. So you're correct. Once that levy passes, you could not bring those things back, or the levy would not last.
Yeah, okay. That's good, I'm good, Sean.
Mrs. Webb, do you have any questions?
No.
With the performance audit, I was able to sit in on that first initial meeting, and they said they will periodically give us updates. Do you remember, what does periodically mean, Steve or Jenny? Was it I mean, I know the information just got to them, but it's data-driven.
Right.
So I believe the first meeting that they're going to get with us about is basically the scope, defining the scope, because, there's a lot of areas that they could dig into, but they're going to do a deep dive into selected areas. And so based on that request for information that they've given and we've supplied the information, their next step will be to define that scope. So that'll be the first meeting. And then after that, I don't remember how often they'll be getting with us, but I know they said before that report is released, I think 2 or 3 weeks before that, they will also meet with us. Right. I know that's one of the indicators to kind of go over what their recommendations would be, but I don't remember the other.
And Steve, just for historical purposes, I mean, salaries and benefits is 80+% of our expenses. And, you know, one of the reasons we're in this situation, stated one of the reasons, is between 18 and 21, I believe. But just for public purposes, would you say on average, the salaries and benefits and the market value were above market or below?
I would say over several years, we're below.
Below,
In terms
that's-
of
yeah.
the
Just so
wage
people-
increases that we've
Yeah.
negotiated, below what our peers are in the county.
Correct, yeah. So it's not like we're just giving out huge raises. It's been below market value. And then that's the question I was going to ask you, Mr. Kleinfelder, was the August. So it's fiscal, you have to be in fiscal emergency in order to put it up in August. And that's still kind of being floated through right now, right? Like the governor hasn't signed it yet, but he will,
No,
I'm sure.
he said he's gonna read it before he signs it, which I thought he should probably read everything before he signs everything.
Kind of telling.
That was the news blurb today.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. What, I think they finished up at like 4 AM
Yeah.
this morning with
Yeah.
everything, so.
And then, this is probably Jenny question, I would think, maybe Steve. So you guys are recommending tonight, along with Dr. Kunkel, that in May, we put up a 9.5 mil levy, right? What is the, I didn't hear what she said.
Is May a primary?
Yeah, I think,
I'm not sure about this May.
do what?
I'm not sure about this May.
I can't hear a word she's saying.
I just keep going.
Yeah. Did you say, is it a primary vote? I don't, okay. I don't think it is, but,
I don't know.
yeah, I don't think it is, Penny.
Off the top of my head.
But let me not lose my thought here. Sorry, hold on one second.
Let's go there.
So the timeline for all that stuff, because I remember there's deadlines you have to hit.
Right.
And so speak through those a little bit if you could. I know there has to be a
Sure.
resolution 1 passed, resolution 2 passed. What's that look like, Steve or Jenny? Do you?
So the first resolution, because this is an emergency levy, your first resolution, which would be a resolution of necessity, would have to be adopted no later than January 20th, which is 100 days before the election. Then we have to send that resolution of necessity to the county auditor's office and receive back a certification of what that millage would provide by ways of dollars. Then you adopt a second resolution, which would be a resolution to proceed, and that resolution is going to have to be adopted in time to file all the documents with the County Board of Elections no later than February 1st. So,
Both of those things will happen in the month of January.
yeah, it's a lot to get done in a short amount of time.
No, I think it's one and then the next one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two separate.
The only way you could do it together is if the county auditor were sitting in the audience and you did one meeting, adopted it, and then adjourned, he would sign it and then come back.
Right.
And some districts have done that,
I
if
think
there
he's
was an
busy right now.
emergency on the timeline, but I don't, yeah.
Okay. So we have plenty of time. We are going to go in executive session about 6:45. So we can open it up if to the public, if anybody has any questions. There's a lot. I mean, I understand that. There's a lot that was out there. If you have any questions, you have a microphone, Mr. Baker? If you don't, not a big deal. We'll go into executive session now, but if you don't mind, Penny, have that, because it's hard to hear you.
My question is about the athletic money that's been collected for the fall. We've made it through a full cycle now, did we collect enough money to self-support that, or is there money still coming out of the general fund? Or can we at some point see a listing of how much people have paid in and how it's been paid out? Has it been paid out in transportation, coaching, whatever? But are we at zero? Did we make the right guess? 825 was the right amount? Or I've not seen any figures on where that money is in any budget.
Okay. Is that a question for you, Steve, or?
Yeah, and the money's been, the fees that have been collected are going to the general fund. And then that goes to pay the supplemental contracts and the transportation costs for athletics, which has traditionally been the portion that the general fund has supported for the athletic program. So the idea was those fees coming in would offset. We can run the numbers to see where we're at. We're close, I'm sure, because the participation really hasn't changed a ton. So what the numbers we use to figure the 825 amount based on the supplementals that were paid last year as well as the transportation costs, our participation is still very close in the same range as to what it was in previous years. So I don't believe we paid out any additional in transportation or much additional in transportation and supplementals. It's been pretty consistent with what we've done in previous years.
I mean, that's a great question.
Yeah.
To get the exact numbers, I
Right.
would guess would be like middle of the summer, wouldn't it, or June?
Yeah, you're going to have to go
If you
through the
want to, if
full
you want to
year
get through the whole
cycle.
cycle of the sports, right?
Right. Yeah, participation in the fall and through the winter has been pretty consistent with previous years. Spring could be way down. I mean, it's hard to tell right now, how many athletes maybe are playing a fall and a winter sport then choose to forego running track in the spring, as an example, because of not wanting to pay a third participation fee or whatever the situation might be. So I think we will have to get through the full school year before we have a complete
It's a good
picture as
question.
to where everything landed.
Yeah, and it's not just about that cost and did we cover it. Like Steve mentioned, is the participation down? Because that was also based on number of students that would be participating. And so I'm sure you have a lot of student athletes that have previously and currently participated in a sport each season.
Right.
Is that going to continue? So it's absolutely necessary to review it at the end of the year and say, what we expected, is that what happened? And as well as not just the financial situation, but how did this impact your students? And did participation decrease? Is it about the same? But yeah, we need to be a little bit further in the year to see the true picture
We
of
are
that.
tracking that. I mean, we're tracking by season every supplemental that was paid out, all of the transportation costs for the season, along with the number of students that were on each rostered team, and it's to try to figure out where that break-even point is with the fee. So we'll be able to address it, I think, at the end of the school year.
And I would say too, that's going to be important as we move forward.
Right.
Levy or no levy, as we analyze the
Correct.
fees we're going to charge in the future, so.
Right.
Well,
definitely
Jenny and I
track
lived
that.
through that, Penny, at Lakota.
Yeah,
Went through a year where the participation fee was X amount of dollars, and then we didn't have as much participation.
right.
So at the end of the year, they took the numbers from that year and then all the expenses, and obviously the participation number will go up. So from 600 to 1,000. If we kept going down that cycle. I mean, I hope we don't get in that situation, but that's how
Right.
you continue to analyze it. It has to be self-funded and not through general fund.
Through the general fund.
Correct, yeah.
The fees are deposited in the general fund.
Correct. I'm not going to put you on the spot, Mrs. Hayes, but
I'm eating dinner.
that was the presentation. Digest it. If you got questions, you can obviously ask Steve and Jenny when you get a chance. Go ahead, yep.
Yeah, so a follow-up question for her. So that report that you just mentioned, at the end of the school year, you're going to make that public?
It's a-
Okay, yeah.
All of our stuff is
Yeah.
public records
Yeah.
requests, so if you want the information, you just ask for the information.
And you
We
can't
are
just-
tracking
You
it.
can't just publish it? We have to ask for it?
No, I mean, yeah, ask for it. We're a public school, ask for the information, we'll give you the information.
Okay.
Yep.
And-
Where's the line item in the general fund for this athletic line?
Are you talking about revenue or expenditures?
Revenue.
So the revenue is going to be part of our, there's a line item when revenue comes in for student fees, there's an actual code that is coded for student fees, so it would be included in there. And then the expenditure side is going to be in our salaries and benefits under supplementals that would be directly for athletics. But all of those things we can pull out of our reporting for a nice report, just to kind of look at that in isolation.
All right, and my last question, and I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but your slide on general fund transfers, one of them was the 1.6 million from the permanent improvement fund. I'm assuming that's only can be one way. So, I mean, now if we have additional funds in permanent improvement, we can't pay back the general fund for that particular. Okay, that's what I thought. I
Yeah,
just wanted to ask.
the only way you can actually get the money back to the general fund is if it's an advance. And then it has to be repaid the following year. But these are transfers, and legally, you can't transfer back to the general fund. So,
That's a good question.
yeah.
Yeah, good clarification.
Okay, well, if we can get a motion to go in executive session for personnel reasons with no action to follow, can we get a first for that, please?
Motion.
Mr. Chanel, can we get a second?
Second?
Mrs. Hayes? Mrs. Logan, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Schnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Kleinfelter?
Yes.
Mrs. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Van Winkle?
Yes.